Test 1, 2.
Test 1, 2.
Alright, we got audio. Potentially I'll have enough power to make it through stream this time. Ah! I got a sub. Cool, I'm glad you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you for the resub, hun. I appreciate it. Let's see who we got in chat here. Oh my word! Oh! I spy a Porsche, a Spice, Pyro, a couple other people just chilling in the bushes, which is fine. Welcome everyone. Oh my goodness. Settle down there, Spice. I haven't been gone that long. Oh my word. Alrighty. Let's see what we got here. We got that all situated. Move my mouse. My Vinda. You know, I thought I remembered almost everything. No, I didn't. Yeah, hang on a minute. I remember most of the things I'm attempting to accomplish. That one tends to slip my mind an awful lot. It's a Madison! Hello! Good evening! Welcome. Welcome to this madness I call my stream. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oh goodness gracious, they changed the layout of my keyboard. Man, that explains why I've been using more question marks lately. The layout's been switched. Oh, that's evil. I'll have to see if I can fix that. Oh, that's how that works. Okay. All right, I'm learning. I'm learning, everyone. Goodness gracious.
You're going to have a much better result.
No, come on. I said PowerShell. Don't sass me, Twitter. And boop. Excellent. Oh my word. Okay, that's done. Or at least so it would appear. What do I know, though? Right, big. Alright, fabulous. Did good.
The worst thing you can do is rush through something and then take 3 times as long as you need to because you have to troubleshoot
Okay.
weird issues.
Alright, before I get started,
What's even worse than that is
I really want to talk to y'all about the ending of technically 2 Wednesdays ago. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're going to learn more about soap, yes. This evening I got the framework for turning this little project into a function, which we can call, and actually, honestly, if I had started with a function after laying out the frame, well, let me rephrase. I was going to switch this into a function, but my power went out. That was kind of the direction we were headed in. But the powers to be said no. So yeah, I wanna talk a little bit about that. So when you have uninterruptible power, everything in the chain of command needs power, or you lose everybody. You lose the audience. You lose your internet connection. So when I was looking at batteries, the laptop still had like 10 minutes. That was what I'm going to be presenting on this evening. And I'm like, all right, I got this. This will be fine. I already know the other half of my network already has at least another hour worth of runtime. Apparently I have a small UPS that's in the middle. And that only provides 7 minutes worth of runtime. And it connects me to you. I have to order batteries. I have to order batteries, because if this happens again, everybody start your stopwatches, because we only got 7 minutes to figure it out. And it's gonna be, oh boy, that's gonna be a quick conversation. Oh my word. So yes, that That's why I went from talking to just blipping out of existence. And then I unfortunately rated you all to fly by who wasn't live. In all fairness, I was trying to do this literally in the dark. I realized my phone has a backlight, but still, it got me good. It got me good. So yeah, that's that little bit of madness. Oh my word. All right, let me see here. Let me find the right thing. That one. Look at that. That's pretty nice. All right, good. All right, we're doing the thing. Fabulous. Okay, for starters, we need PowerShell. We need the funny blue window, which in Windows 11 is black for some reason. I mean, it's got the blue icon to indicate that it's, you know, the appropriate terminal and not command prompt, because last time I mixed those up like a goober. You gotta love it. I know I do! Yes, indeed. Okay. Alright, so to build off of where we left off, here's the cool thing. I saved what I was working on. I saved a couple of times while I was going along here. I'm gonna kind of rewrite some of this from scratch. Because, you know, stuff and things. But where we had left off was the state of our container and our user input, right? I did save it. I saved while I was working. It's probably one of the most important things one could do while working on a computer is save your stuff. The only thing more tragic than that is when you accidentally save over something you actually needed with information you didn't need. That's the only time the save button could betray you. You're just like working, and you're clicking, and you're clacking, and you're typing, and you're going ham! And then you click the save button and you're right over the wrong document, and then you're sad. And you're only yourself to blame because you clicked the save key and your stuff went away. Oh, it's so bad. Yes, don't save over your stuff. You are correct, Madison. We do have a lot of numbers and letters on the screen. And thankfully we're using Notepad++, which is an open source text editor, which adds the pretty color. It genuinely helps with trying to figure out what in the name that is good in this world we're actually attempting to accomplish. Which is what we're going to do. So, yes. To give a general recap, this is a do while loop. So, we asked the human, or robot, I don't know, man, whatever's going to run this from the terminal window, insert your thing here. We ask it if it's washing its hands. At which point we were just entering an integer. So we're going to add this to, we're going to write this up to be a little bit more realistic. I think is going to be the phrasing I'm going to use for this. We're going to write this up as a PowerShell function. What does that mean and why do we care? In the land of coding, a function is a block of code you can call over and over again and only write it once. Once. Finger tracking, help me out here. Finger tracking, do the thing. Hands. Once. Nope. Once. Which saves a lot of lines. Because if you only have to write it one time, you can call it as many times as you see fit. Which is why you'll see that in code that you may view or review or even write your own, that everything gets compartmentalized into these little containers. And those are called functions. Which is what we're going to do. So, we've got soap.ps1, and then we're going to have soap function. Now, I'm going to save this as a PS1, which is the file extension for a normal PowerShell function, or excuse me, a normal PowerShell script. A function, on the other hand, can be saved, I believe, as a PSM, M as in Mary. Let me double check that. I believe that's what that is. Because it's a different extension, but the thing is that the compiler in PowerShell doesn't care which one it is. Oh, PSM1. Excuse me, I had to check. I guess we could technically just name it that. I just need to remember that. It's in the name. That's the king. Oh, it isolates out the scopes. I mean, technically when you call a script, it's already in an isolated scope. Which means that they're not... They provide module-specific behaviors distinct from regular PS1 scripts. Huh. Honestly, that's well above my pay grade, folks. I'm just gonna name it as a PS1 because that's what I'm familiar with and I know what's gonna work with this evening's example. Which is good. Helldivers reset your loadout. Oh, that's crappy. I'm sorry to hear that. Then you gotta figure out what the heck you had equipped. That's just a big old nuisance. Okay. This is gonna end up working probably a little bit backwards. We're gonna write the code and then we're gonna write the description of what the code does. When you write stuff for PowerShell, right? If I were to come over here to the terminal, right? Something that's super useful inside of this coding little environment we live in here is that you can do a get help to see what the stuff does, right? Now, when you write specialty stuff or a custom script or method, you would also want to include how to use your stuff, especially if future you wants to take a look at what previous you typed on the keyboard. Because future you likely won't forget, will likely forget what past you wrote down, and then future you has to figure out what past you was thinking at the time, which you don't have to do if you just add some notes and some basic syntax guidance examples so you know how to use, so future you can figure out what old you was trying to do, which may not necessarily be what future you wants. But that's a conversation for another time. Oh my goodness. So if I do a get child item on the current space we're living in, right? It'll give me a directory listing. Which actually, here, let me go inside of the documents folder first. Let me do that. Get child item, right? So right now, there's the file we made last time called soap.ps1 and soapfunction.ps1. It's a length of 0. The reason it's a length of 0 is because, well, you can see there's nothing in here yet, which is why it's so small, because there's nothing in it. I'm equipped to have it in my mission. Oh. Bugs like that are terrible. I actually had a friend that was trying to play through Grand Theft Auto 5, and they made it through, I think, the first half an hour of story, and then when they saved it, closed, and came back, it lost it again. So then they went lather, rinse, repeat, and they played for, I think, another like 2 or 3 hours after that. Saved, and then lather, rinse, repeat, they launched it, and they lost their save again. Which then they didn't play again for a long time after that. I don't know if I ever had that problem figured out, because I'm pretty sure that save date is local to the machine. I don't know. It's funky, though. It's a pain, though, when things like that get reset. Okay. Here's the kicker. A synopsis, right? I did a get help on the get child item command. Now, before I just ran it, and you can see here, this is all it does. It just tells you what's in the directory, and there's some other switches that can allow you to figure out, you know, what you're trying to pull here. Last right, brain, the mode, and the right time. A get help tells you actually all of the switches that command supports. You don't need to know them. You can just ask for them. Now, granted, this isn't going to tell you what they do in this, what you see here. This is just all the ones that are available to you. Another thing too is that since PowerShell has become more and more towards the concept of being cross-platform, you're gonna notice that it has some aliases. Now, aliases are things you could type that'll run the same command. So I could type GCI, LS, or DIR. DIR is a directory listing, is a command specifically from command prompt. LS is the directory listing command inside of Linux, Linux Bash, the Bash shell. I'm not sure what the GCI one is though. That one might be a like a lower level Microsoft command. That also, GCI. Let me see what that is. I'm not sure what that one is. Oh, is that technically a PowerShell command? I know it's an alias to command. Huh. It's apparently just another alias for PowerShell. I don't see it being related to something else. All right, fair enough. I get too far off track with that stuff. So all these commands just do the same thing I just did. So if I type GCI, LS, or DIR, it's just going to spit out this right here. These lines of code. It tells you what directory you're in and what things are in the folder. But the get help spits out to the screen all the supported syntax. Some remarks is just, you know, that, as you can see what's on the screen. But the kicker with this here is that you can also do, I guess, dash examples. Maybe I have to put that over here. Actually, let me check. There's a way when they have examples built in, you can call on them. Show command. Oh. Oh, whoa. Okay, that's actually kind of cool. That actually opens up a Windows Form GUI window to actually show you all the attributes in the OS for this command instead of in command line. That's not quite what I was looking for it to do. I actually think it is dash example, but it has to support it. My point, frankly, you can build examples into your PowerShell functions. So then when you go to look at it again in the future, you can actually just pull the example. Either you can call it from the command prompt, or you can just look at the example you wrote inside of your own code. Because the point here is to write a synopsis, which is what the function does in a couple of words, a description, which describes in a little bit of details what it's for, the output, what it returns, if it does any. Some commands don't return anything. Some commands some functions don't return anything, they just do a thing, right? Like you could have a function that just copies a folder from one folder on the computer and puts it into another folder on the computer. The thing is that there's no output to that, but you can list the fact that there's no output to that. Output would be something being returned, right? So if you put 25 cents into a function, and then another 25 cents into a function, and the function's method is to add those two together, what's it going to return? 50 cents. It's going to add them together. That would be a number or a value that comes back to you. And then the example is just how you use it, which you could just write however you want. I've only written a small handful of functions that I reuse on the daily, but they're not hard to write, which, you know, comes in handy. So what we're going to do is we're going to just build out where the synopsis is going to go, and then we'll come back to it. First things first, comments, everyone. always comment what your code does in some capacity. It doesn't have to be overly detailed, but if it's broken into smaller subsections, make sure to include what those different things do. Because again, future you, or potentially future other version of you, especially if you share your code with others or put it on like on GitHub or whatever, one might want to read through it to understand what the heck the thing does. We'll appreciate this. So we're gonna pick up where we left off a little bit on the whole SOAP idea. All right, so we have this is a function that modifies soap dispenser. This is the time I'm gonna run spell check because I can't spell for anything. I'm gonna show you live how bad my spelling is. And my response to that is no regrets. Because I probably can't spell that either. I'm not mad, I know my limitations. Oh, spelling kicks me in the face on the daily. Okay. Alright, so we're building out a function, folks. Now, we have the fact that this is going to be a function. Now, this is the part where you have to be careful with what this next part is, right? To call your function, in this case, is going to be our little thing for, you know, working with the soap dispenser. This can't what we type next can't overlap with any system reserved words or any existing functions. So obviously if it runs into a problem, it usually just doesn't compile or it gets mad, with a variety of errors, which is what it is. But we are just going to call this, I don't know what I want to shorthand this to. I can just make it soap fun. Fun is short for function. I'm going to open and close a set of curly braces. I'm going to add some enters in here to add me some space. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment off the end of this closing brace. I'm going to notate that this is the end of the function. Actually, I should put the name of the function in there. The soap function. And I'm going to save by hitting Control S on the keyboard. Why do I do this? If for some reason you decide to add more code underneath this, which when you're writing functions, I really don't recommend doing that. What happens here is you'll know that it's no longer included in the function. So by giving you this marker to indicate this is the bottom of where this begins. Now, something you can see here in this text editor is it adds the pretty colors. There's a red line here, and I can click this to actually collapse this in and out. So I can actually visually see that there's nothing below there, which helps in that regard. Yeah, it helps with that. Okay. So the next thing here, I am not going to type, but I'm going to copy, and then modify. Haha. Okay. So next thing I have here is I don't necessarily know what you call this. It's the block comment that then you'd be able to access from within the command line. So if I wanted to understand what the function did, I could see the synopsis, I could see the description, and this is the examples I was talking about. There's a way to call these from within the terminal, which apparently I forgot how to do, because I don't think it's dash. It might be dash example. I think it has to actually be declared first though before that works. Well, here, this doesn't do anything, but technically I should be able to call on that if that was the case. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to include that document Oh, that's right. Hmm. Okay, hang on. I need to take a second and change the execution policy on this computer. So give me a moment. Oh, hang on. I need to see what scope I have to run this in. So let's see what command limit it is. It's been a while since I've had to do this. I have to run this as an administrator, because of course I do. I mean, in all fairness, I am looking to do something that's kind of machine breaking. Okay, good. Nope, that's not the right one. How about that one? They're slightly different in size, and I can tell the difference. Okay, much better. Okay, I fixed my problem. I didn't want to show that because if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't do that. So I'm not going to show that. I don't want anybody injuring themselves. Ha! Oh, Pyrex, hello. You were going to bed. I mean, if you want to stick around and listen to me rant about PowerShell and, hand soap for a little while, you're more than welcome to it. That's perfectly fine. All right, so if I did this right, I should be able to call, and where am I? Oh, there we go. Haha! Okay, good. All right, so I'm not typing hilariously fast there. I'm using the tab key to switch through the possible combinations. Since I had just did a period, space, period, backslash in the name of the file, I have included the code into my instance but didn't actually run it. So this, what you see on screen, has been loaded into the terminal window I have in front of you. And the name of the function is soap fun, short for function. It is also fun. Fun, fancy that. Soap, I know. Hey, listen, Parks. I didn't say it was scented soap, okay? You can let that just kind of marinate in your mind if you'd like. I think it's dash examples AMPLE, or maybe it is the get help. Right. So without me actually, going into the code to look at it, there's the synopsis. What does it do in a few words? Synopsis. What does in a few words? I didn't edit this yet, but just to show you that it was actually accessible. I didn't give any parameters to this yet, so actually the syntax is empty. Right, and then how to call. Oh, wait, if I read, this would probably get me the distance. It's dash detailed, because I'm a goofball. It's dash detail, isn't it? I think I have to do that over here. Ha ha! Okay, I'm going to write that down. All right, so it's the get help command / detail. I swear, if I just read what was in the terminal window, I would have seen that. But no, not today. I typed dash detailed, and I mentioned earlier I was trying to pull up the examples, and here they are. So when we get to the point that we write the example, they will show here. Hello, Jabu. Welcome in. Welcome into this madness that I call PowerShell. It's very, very concerning. Gotta love it. Yes, okay, good. So I don't forget that. I'm going to do a thing. I'm gonna put that up here. I'm gonna put that up here in the get help. So I don't forget. And I should be able to put this in quotes without upsetting anything. Like that. Another thing that comes in kind of handy here, is the fact that when it's a block comment like this, so like an individual comment is this light green, and it's denoted by the pound symbol, but a block comment starts with an open caret, and then the pound symbol, and then is closed with the exact opposite, which again, because this is a cool terminal for text, I can actually collapse this so I don't have to see it. I'm gonna be honest, I generally don't collapse the code I'm working on, but you can. That's what the scroll is for, in my opinion, but it's there. Okay, we got that. Now is gonna be time for us to actually do some stuff. So the next part, I'm also going to copy and paste to save myself some typing, because we're going to modify my lovely example here to save us some time. Okay, so same rule as before. This is the beginning, this parameter section, or excuse me, this process keyword is the beginning and ending of the process that lives inside of the function. I did the same thing with this in the example by adding a comment indicating that this brace is the ending to this statement declaration where it begins. This is the beginning, this is the end. This is the end of the function. This is the beginning of the function. As you'll notice, it's the same symbol for both of them, which is why, when you look at this, it's a little concerning because they're the same exact symbol. And if I delete one of these on accident, it's not going to compile. It won't run, which is why the curly brace has been the world champion in the case of hide and seek. You might be able to find Waldo, but I can promise you, you're not going to find the brace if you don't note them, because they could go lost into the bits and bytes, and then you're driving yourself absolutely bonkers because you don't know where the heck it went, especially if you lose one. Don't do that to yourself. You'll live longer. My point. Okay. So, there's some extra stuff I copied and pasted here that we're actually going to rename and use. So in our grand scheme of things here, we are going to ask for stuff that's required to run this function, right? So we probably should start working out what things we need for that ideal, right? For our example. So let's actually type up here in a separate window, just so we have some notes here that we can look at, of what we want to capture, right? So the idea of what this function is going to be is to be able to use, to be able to modify our soap dispenser variable, right? So we're going to have a variable, that's going to be containing how much soap we have in our bottle, right? And what the function is going to be able to do is it's going to manipulate it, right? So we're going to be able to add soap, remove soap, but all we're going to do is we're going to feed it the variable of how much we have, and then from there, let the function do its thing depending on what we provide it, right? So the first thing we're going to need is the soap level, right? Now we already know that a soap level has to be a number, right? So I'm just going to put that in notes just so we know what it is, right? And then we could have the user, right? So the name of the individual using the dispenser, we can pull in, right? And that's going to be a string, right? Now, strings can be a combination of numbers and letters. But what's important is that when you go to do math, that you don't mix types. Now, type would be like an integer or an int, which is what the soap level is going to be. Don't try to add together the user's name and the soap level because you're going to upset the compiler. It's going to say you're stupid. You can't add an integer into letters. You can't take the word broccoli and add 12 to it. That's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. And the compiler will get mad if you try to add 12 into broccoli. It's not going to know what to do with it, and neither do I. Oh yes, Pyrex, thank you for that. Just watch me, yeah. I mean, listen. If you try it, it's going to have a bad time. Which, I'm telling you, you could take it as a challenge, and it's going to start throwing its bits and bytes at you. You better be careful. So we've got that, our user, and then we need... Well, let's think about what we want to call this. So we have the existing level, right? That's the first thing we're asking for. The name of who's doing what they're doing. And then we need a name for the actual change of level. So we're going to adjust up or down how much soap is in the container, either by us adding more or by actually using the dispenser, which will reduce the amount of soap in the thing, right? So we need a name for that. It's going to be a number, though. So let's think about this for a minute, folks. What do we want to call that? Yes. I mean, given if I declared both of them as strings, we could probably make that happen. But no, we don't want the bad code. We don't want that. Just like if I chroma keyed my face. If I chroma keyed right now to change my background, I'd lose my face because my face is green. All right, I am the color of broccoli. Okay, we don't want to do that. That'll cause problems. Wouldn't be the first time I lost my face thanks to OBS. It won't be the last. Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. Okay. Pyrex, you just reminded me of something. Oh god. All right, I'm gonna get derailed for a couple of minutes here because it's a quick story. Okay, so the whole thought process is to why we have to think about what we're doing with what we're doing right now, right? We want to make sure that what we're accepting is in the format that we need, and then that we can run the appropriate calculations on it, right? So that's assuming that the user inputs the correct information into the system. Because I want you to remember something. I want you to get real close right now, okay? I want you to understand something. All right, you listening? If you put garbage into the system, garbage is going to come back out, okay? It's not going to work, okay? Or it may not work as intended, which means you can get some pretty funny results from your programming, amongst other things. The reason that I recall to the fact that this is a little story related is that earlier in the week, I saw a car go through a drive-thru, and it didn't go through the entrance. It drove through the do not enter. Once it drove through the do not enter, it missed the speaker because it entered in the wrong part of the parking lot. So then what did the vehicle do? It backed up to the speaker, and then the speaker didn't trigger. You know why? Because the car went through the drive-thru backwards. And you know what doesn't trigger when you go through the drive-thru backwards? The speaker! I'm assuming that the sensors that indicate when there's a car at the drive-thru is under the assumption that the car is going to go the appropriate direction through the drive-thru. That car did not. And I'm pretty sure I recall them honking because it didn't trigger the speaker. Well, if you went through the drive-thru in the appropriate order, it would have triggered, but it didn't. And then you were triggered because it didn't trigger. Use the system as it's intended, and then at least you have a decent chance of it doing what you need. I'm not saying it's going to be foolproof, but I mean to actually go through the process of using something not as it's intended. You're asking for some pretty interesting results. That's all I got to say about that. Oh my word. That is where we go with that, okay? I want you to remember that. Write that down. You know, grab a Sharpie if you need to. You know, as much as I'd like to believe that the passenger wanted to order, I only saw one individual in the car. But that's a good point. I mean, granted, if it was tinted windows, that would 100% would have been my thought process too. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Use the stuff as intended. Is it that hard? The answer is yes. Yes, yeah, I'm going to answer my own question. It is yes. That's just how this works. I'm not going to fight myself. That's just how this works. Okay. All right. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the thought process of going the wrong way through the drive-thru. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no, that's a tangent we had to go on because use the system backwards. Watch what happens. It doesn't work. Okay, soap levels. That's I'm easily distracted by myself. That's how that works. Oh god, yeah. Okay. All right, so we have the soap level that's gonna be pre-existing. The user. I think we'll just call it adjustment. That's also going to be a number. Because I'm going to be honest, I can't think of another thing to call this that would be reasonable. The big thing as to why I'm kind of slaving over the idea of the name is when you read through this and you try to use it, I could just simply use a letter to indicate the variable. Or a letter and a number. A1, B2, C3. Here's the kicker. Your code won't be readable if you don't give your variables meaning. The only thing that's more important than meaningful variables is not overusing them. And what I mean by overusing them is taking a variable that has a name like soap level and then storing the level of the temperature outside. That doesn't make any sense. Don't do that. The code will let you do that. Don't actually do that because you'll confuse yourself. You already have enough trouble now that you're trying to bust out PowerShell. Hello, Hobbit. I'm a wave to you. I'm a wave real good, okay? Hello. Welcome to the madness. We're talking about soap and PowerShell and functions. We just talked about driving backwards through our drive-thru because fancy that's how people work in this country. It was fun to watch. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Now, in the case of this, if we're going to make adjustments to how much soap is in the soap dispenser, we need to know how much soap is in the dispenser, which means that's going to need to be required. The adjustment is how much up or down, which means that's also going to need to be required. But necessarily the person who used the dispenser doesn't necessarily have to be required, which means we're actually going to make the user an optional input. The good thing about making an input optional is that if you don't require it all the time, you can omit it. And by not forcing it to be a requirement, it allows you to be able to run without it. And if you force it and you don't need to set it every time, well, then your code has to be a little longer. You have to do that. I'm glad to see your existing Hobbit, as are we, in this beeping and booping environment. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I wanted to have this so it was off to the corner, but the Windows snap thing is going to be angry at me. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we have got our parameters. So we're gonna make all three of these parameters, right? So the first parameter is going to be mandatory. I personally like to list my mandatory parameters first, and then anything that is optional at the end. Just so you can see in one shot here, because especially if you have a lot of parameters that runs off the screen like this, you have to grab the scroll bar. Ours won't, but then you can see what's mandatory in front of your face. So parameter, mandatory, true. the type of parameter it is, and then its name. So in this case, it's going to be an int because we're going to work with integers. And then this is going to be the soap level. Now, something you're going to see that I do, that's going to be fairly consistent throughout all of the things that I do when it comes to variables and the way I name them. If it's a normal variable and it's more than one word, I will never capitalize the first letter of the variable. I will always capitalize the second letter of the variable. So this is soap level. You can't have spaces in variable names. So by doing what's called camel case, so that start small, start big, then you already know where the logical break is by reading this, because there's no space, because you can't have spaces in variable names. There's nothing stopping you from starting with a capital, but in my personal preference, I always start lowercase. If you have a variable that never changes, then I will type that in all caps, indicating that I'm never going to change it. Which I'm pretty sure there's a way inside of PowerShell to force a variable can't be changed, but we're not going to play with that this evening. Just know that I do this on purpose for readability and usability. All right, so we have the soap level. Other mandatory is going to be adjustment. So that's going to be another integer. Statement. Okay, so then my last parameter is going to not be mandatory, so I'm going to set this to false. The type is going to be a string. A bool, B-O-O-L, is Boolean. So that's either a true or false variable. It's either a 1 or a 0. That is all that's ever going to indicate. I'm going to be working with text, so this has to be a string. And that's going to be the user's name. Yeah, I'm going to save that so I don't lose what we've gotten so far. Now we're to the point that these have been declared and they're mandatory, right? The first two are mandatory. We're going to use them now, right? So the idea here is that we're going to provide the existing soap level, and then we're going to give what the adjustment is, up or down, and then who did it, right? But that's not mandatory. So I can remove this comment because I just copied this from my little bit of an example here. Now, anything I write that has to be a part of the process, which is the center of our code, right, has to exist in this space. It has to be inside of the process section. This space between these two curly braces are the only places that these three variables will be available that I'm declared here within the scope of this function. So if I try to call on soap level down here underneath these two curly braces, it'll be out of scope. It won't have access to it. So it has to only exist within the process, which means that when it's time to give the value of what our soap dispenser is at, I'm actually going to do a thing called a return, and we're going to return the soap level. We're going to give it back to the main program, which we're going to do. So first things first, we are going to indicate with a right host statement our current soap level. So we're going to say the current level of the soap dispenser, I don't have to type it, thank you, autocomplete, is, and a colon, a space. Now, I purposely put a space between this double quote and the colon that I have in here, right? Why did I do this? When I have, when I call on the variable that's going to be after this, I need to have a space or the number will be stuck directly up against the colon, which I don't want. So I'm actually going to put a space in here inside of this quoted output. And then I'm going to pull the variable from what we passed to it. So I'm going to do $soap level, like so, right? So if I save that, and then I don't actually know if I could pull this back in without having to... We're going to try this. If I do that and then do... Ooh, okay, I can pull it back in. So if I say the soap level is at 10 and I hit enter, look at this. I hit enter and I didn't supply the other remaining things that it actually needed from me. So it actually said in the pipeline, supply the values for the following parameters. I forced it to be a required field. So it actually wants to know what the adjustment's going to be. Now right now, the code doesn't do anything with that value, but it's still required. So I have to put something in here that's an integer. Now, if I try to give it a letter, I think it's going to bark at me. Yep, can't recognize the letter F as a system.int32 due to a formatting error. I forced this variable to be required to be an integer by doing the int in square brackets, not curly braces. These are different symbols. This symbol over here is different than this symbol over here. That means it needs to be a number, which means it actually won't let me proceed until I put in a number. So I'll just put in 1, because right now it doesn't do anything. Okay, so as you see right now, it returned the current level of the soap dispenser is 10. Right now, in our world, we're going to work with percentages, right? So I'd actually like the percent symbol to appear on the end of this. So I am going to then come back over to here, and then on the other side of this, I'm going to put the percent symbol. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe I can get away with doing it this way. I don't think I need anything. I think I just sandwiched them in between. All right, didn't explode. That was a good place. That's a good first place to start. Yep, beauteous. So the current level of the soap dispenser is at 10%, because that's what we gave it. Now, I typed an adjustment of 5, and as you see, it didn't do anything. Why? Because we haven't built that yet. We need to do that. We're building from top to bottom. We're working our way there. Yeah. Oh my goodness, Hobbit. That's horrifying. Oh God, and Hornet in the car. Oh. Okay. I've dealt with bugs in the car before. I've also captured, with the dashboard, carpenter bees. I drive with the windows down. I can't help it. It's nice in the summer. I remember one crashing into my dash like a softball. It sounded like a softball. And the little dude just crawled out of the dash and then ran his little arms over his head. And he's like, geez, man, what the heck was that? And then flew back out through my other open window, which was very confusing. But yeah, Hornet's another story. So, carpenter bees, they're very lovely and they don't really want to hurt you. Hornets are, yeah, no, they're full of violence. Yeah, no, I felt that. I've also actually, through that same softball method of things flying in through my window, have actually managed to catch, I remember them being on the news a lot. It's called a murder hornet, which is much, much bigger than a normal hornet. They're like twice the length. They're terrifying. I caught that like a little softball. It got lost in my car, and then on my way home, it was crawling up my seatbelt. Horrifying. Hobbit, that's a very terrifying experience, regardless of the size of the bug, because those little guys like to bite and sting. Not great. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I'm glad that you're safe, and I'm hoping you didn't get hurt, because that's not great. My word, the answer is no. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh yeah, I believe that, Pyrex. That's why when you're ever on any kind of open face vehicle like that, that you zip your zippers all the way up, because the last thing you want is for something like that to get inside of your clothes, especially at speed, because it's not like they're exactly having anywhere else to go. No, no, I'm a vote no. Don't collect $200. Don't pass go. The answer is no. we're not doing this. My goodness, it's terrifying. Okay, yeah. Yeah. All right, so now I gotta do some stuff. Yeah, zip. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially if you have a helmet with a face shield. Put the shield down. You'll feel better. Let's see here. Okay. Now our next thing here, before I proceed, I'm gonna write a comment here. Is going to display to the screen the current soap level. And it's just simply a write host statement that just spits it up to the terminal so we can see what we put in. Nothing special going on there. The next thing we're going to do is adjust the soap dispenser based on a user input. So, the next thing we need to do is we need to take our soap level, modify it, and save it back to itself. That's what we're going to do next, right? So we're going to take our soap level. So the first thing I'm doing, this always writes backwards, because what you're going to do is you're going to store the value of your math, right? So you write first where you're going to store that information, right? So I'm going to modify the soap level by taking the soap level and then doing something to it, right? So right now, with me doing nothing more, this just indicates soap level is equal to soap level. We're going to finish the rest of the math on the other side here. But it's always declared in a bit of a funky fashion. I am now going to think about how we're going to do this, because as long as we're always adding, I think that's going to be the right way to do this. So we're going to add in the adjustment to the soap level. When does this make sense? So if I take the soap level and I add soap to it, that means I'm going to add in to the soap level, and then the new level will be our added in, right? But if we subtract soap, what's going to happen is we're going to take a positive number and we're going to add a negative to it, which when you add a negative to a positive, it subtracts from the positive, and then you have whatever's left from your positive. I can't subtract in here, because if I were to subtract it, it would reverse the logic. So then to add soap, I'd have to put in a negative number, and then to remove soap, I'd have to put in a positive number. That would get confusing. So we're going to use the addition symbol here to make this a little less confusing. Now, where we're going to go from here, is we've done the math, right? That's going to happen. Now, I like displays to come back to the screen, because when you're troubleshooting, something that can save you from having to open up the code and skim through a bunch of code is taking the time to put write host statements in your code, so you can actually see what things are changing to. It doesn't hurt to spit the stuff out to the terminal, especially if you're going to run one of these scripts in the background so that you don't see what it's doing, like a script that just copies folders. You're not going to be looking at that. You're just going to schedule it and it's just going to run in the background. You're never going to see the terminal output. But when you're writing it and troubleshooting it, it's a world of difference for it to tell you on the screen what the script is up to. So much easier to troubleshoot. So from here, we're going to display the new soap level with just the level or the level and the user's name. Good evening, Gerard. Welcome on in. We're doing a little bit here with PowerShell this evening. We're building ourselves some code to add and remove soap to our soap dispenser that we're building out here. I don't know if I'm necessarily adorable, but I am having a good time this evening. Okay. Now, I did say something here that is going to make this statement be a little different, right? So I have an or in here. What I want to do is I want to say that either if a name is provided, I want to include that in the output. But if the name isn't included, I'm not going to involve that in the output. So I'm going to run through an if statement, an if-else statement. So if the name exists, we're going to do one thing. If the name doesn't exist, we're going to do something different. I think this is going to make a little more sense to you, Pyro, when we run it. Because right now I'm just working through the process. Because as you can see right here, right? This is all the framework, right? So we've got 3 variables, right? We've got the soap level. We've got the adjustment. So the soap is going to go up or down, depending on what we're doing. And then the name of the user, right? So that we're just simply capturing from our call to the program, which I haven't actually written yet. That actually comes after you write the function. Because what the whole point of writing a function is so that you can reuse this block of code without ever having to write it again. You just call it, and then you can use it, which will make sense when we want to make multiple adjustments to the soap dispenser. Our first kickoff here is just writing to the screen what we provided, the current level, and then we're actually making the adjustment up or down. This next part, we're going to actually write out the actual adjustment, right? So the next thing we want to do is to test if we have something in the username variable that's currently a string. Now, this is where typecasting can get a little interesting. So I'm purposely going to take username and show you this on the screen, actually in a new terminal. I don't want to mess with the other one I got there because I can continue to keep calling that. But this is so here's something that's all right. That's going to be a little confusing for you. I have 2 windows of PowerShell open right now, right? The stuff that's running in this terminal behind this one does not see what's in this terminal, right? So I called the soap fun function that I've declared. If I type that over here, it's not going to work because it doesn't exist. This PowerShell window is outside of the scope of the one that's behind it. They don't see each other. So anything I do in this terminal won't affect the other one. Okay, so I've declared that username is floof, F-L-O-O-F, right? And you can see that on the screen because I did it. Excuse me, I typed it, and then right there is what it outputted, right? So right now there's something in that variable, right? So what I want to do is I want to say if bool is equal to or wait, is like, because it's a string we're working with here, even though it's a Boolean. I think it's going to be the like keyword. True. Actually, if I don't provide a return, yeah, that's what I thought. It doesn't return anything. Oh, it would help if I put the name of the variable in here. Okay, so I'm hoping I'm not going to lose you in this. What we're going to do is we want to know if there's something in the variable. We don't care what's in the variable. If a name has been provided, which could be any combination of words, letters, and numbers, we just want to know there's something in there, right? And the easiest way to determine if there's something in a variable, even if it's just a space, would be to compare it of whether, treat it like it's a Boolean, whether it's true or false. If there's something in the variable, it's true. If there's nothing in the variable, it's false. So if I do an if statement and do the bool operator in square brackets before the variable name, what that does inside of this condition is it treats this like it's a Boolean now. So then I ask if this username, which I made floof, is it like $true? Now, if I don't do the casting with this, it actually should come back as false, which I should actually add on here. What happens if it's not true? Just for comparison's sake. If I take that bool off of there, I'm pretty sure this will return false. Haha, and it does. And you know why it does? Because now it's treating that variable like a variable, and it's no longer a Boolean. Because is floof like true? No, floof is not like true. True would be like true, which is why the bool is required. Now, if I take that variable and set it equal to nothing, and run it again. So by doing username is equal to an empty set of double quotes, I didn't put anything in here, and then rerun the command. If username treated like a Boolean, like a true or false, is like true, well, it's empty. Empty or null is also known as false. By treating it as a true or false, it then is comparable. So is it true? No, it's not true. It's false because there's nothing in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that logic and apply it to what we're currently doing, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to make this make a little bit more sense. Because I realize that's a little confusing until I add a little bit of context to it. I actually needed the right host. Actually, for this to indicate we'll do $username has interacted with the soap dispenser. It is at level got a little bit of space there, makes it a little more legible. Okay. So I'm saying here, if the username casted as a Boolean is like true, meaning that there's just simply something in there, don't care what it is, we're going to then write to the screen the actual name that was typed in by the user. So in this case, I was saying floof for my example. I'm going to run with that. Floof has interacted with the soap dispenser. It is at level, insert the level here, %. Else, I would want to write to the screen the soap's level, but I don't have the name of the user because it wasn't provided. So I'm going to make this simply hard-coded as the user has interacted with the soap dispenser and keep the rest of this the same. Had some commas in there. A little bit of grammar. Okay. I'm going to save that now. Right? Now, I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to clear the screen. And I'm going to re-import our function. So now that the latest code is in here. Okay, this is starting to come along. We still need to do the return statement. We haven't gotten there yet. That's kind of the, cherry on top before we get to the documentation, which I like to do last. Once I know how it works and I've kind of figured out where I'm going with this, then I work backwards and then I write the documentation for it. Everybody does documentation in their own stages. You could write something in there that indicates ahead of time what you're expecting to have happen and then go back and change it. I just prefer to just wait until I'm done because I can go through my comments and then kind of get an idea of what's going on. But as it stands right now, I can call soap fun. Now, another cool thing that you could do is I can just do a dash and then hit tab. And then it'll actually go through my required fields and optional ones, and also the system built-in ones. So we've got soap level, we've got adjustment, we've got username, and then you're going to notice there's extra ones here. There's verbose, debug, error action, warning action, information action, error variable, warning variable, information variable, output variable, output buffer. My God, man, there's a lot of these. Oh, there we go. And then whatever the other one was. There's a lot of them. Those are all built-in functions that are there, regardless of whether you add them or not. It's just a part of the way the compiler works. Like error action, if your script runs into a problem and you set up some try and catches, it can actually set that error level, and you don't have to actually declare it because it's just there already. But you can set it. The big thing is setting it, but it's always there. Distraction. All right. All right. So we have a soap level of 100%. And then we're going to do an adjustment and use 5% of it. So -5. And I'm going to hit enter. Now, we can see here that the current level of the soap dispenser, before we did anything, was at 100%. I didn't provide a username which means it returned back to the screen that the user, it didn't provide a username, has interacted with the soap dispenser, is at level 95%, right? Now these percentages I tacked on at the end, right, after the variable. So if we come back over here, they're hard-coded, right? They just show up here. It's not inside of the variable because the variable is still just simply a number, right? Now, remember how I mentioned about scope level? That what you put inside of here is not accessible outside. If I try to pull up adjustment, nothing comes to the screen. Because even though I included the function in our current path by doing the period, space, period, backslash, and the name of the function, those variables that we have that are inputted here that are usable are scoped to just the inside of these braces for the process. So I can only use them and interact with them between here and down here. Or I can collapse and expand, right? To make that a little bit more obvious on the screen, because I realize that this stuff's a little on the small side for y'all that are watching, especially if any of you are listening to me on mobile. I don't know if any of this is even legible on mobile. Probably not, unless you're looking at it full screen, which even then, case in point, that's collapsible, right? Now, as it stands right now, we put some numbers in, but nothing truly came back out because there's no return to the function right now. We would like a return to the function. We want the number to come back out. So that's what we're going to do. So, at the absolute bottom, we're going to add our return. What are we returning? Anybody want to take a wild guess? If you're thinking the soap level, you're correct. Well, Pyro, you're right by proxy. I'll give you that. So what I'm doing now, by dropping this return statement at the end, I'm saying that this internal variable, soap level, whatever's in here, I'm returning it back to the primary terminal that I called this in. So it's going to go back out of the function. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to call the function, re-import it. The other thing I'd actually like to do here is test the username. Make sure that works. Okay. Now, what you can see here is that I did soap fun. The soap level was 100. I removed 5% of the soap. The username I provided was floof. So it then said the current level of the soap dispenser starting at 100%. Floof, I guess that should have been a lowercase h. I'll fix that in a second. Has interacted with the soap dispenser. It's at level 95%. And then you'll notice 95 spit back again to the terminal here. There's nothing else indicated, but it's just living down here. Right. Pyro, you're exactly on the correct train of thought. Now, as it stands right now, I did nothing to capture this number. So it just spat it back to the terminal where we could see it, but now it's gone. We could see it, but there's no, I can't get that right now because I didn't store it anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrow up one, and I am going to go to the beginning of this, and then I'm going to make a new variable to capture our output. And I'm going to call it soap bottle. Now, before I run that, I'm going to do something else. It's going to be relevant. I'm going to declare that the soap bottle is at 100%. So if I call soap bottle, it spits back 100 to the screen, right? Because we're at 100% full, right? Now I want to adjust my soap bottle by using it. So by doing that, here's what I'm going to do. Remember how I mentioned earlier in the code here that to do math on a variable's existing, you have to do the math, but then set that result back into itself? We're going to do exactly the same thing, right? So as it stands right now, soap bottle is a variable that's local to this terminal we're in right now, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this variable into the function. It's going to spit back the result, but then it's going to store it back into the soap bottle, right? So I'm going to say the soap bottle is equal to our function. Now the cool thing here is that you don't have to provide a hard-coded number. I could pass a variable into this function, right? Because we already just indicated that the soap bottle's at 100%. I don't need to type that into the function. I want the function to just modify it for me, right? So I then take the soap bottle, I pass it, I'm going to capture its result and pass it into the function. So soap fung for function, I'm going to pass the soap level of the current bottle. I'm going to call on an adjustment for it. I'm going to remove 10% of the soap. And the username's going to be floof. I'm going to hit enter. Here's what's going to happen. The current level of the dispenser is spit out to the screen, right? And then the name of the user, because we have an if statement, is displayed. Floof has interacted with the soap dispenser. It is at level 90%, right? It did get rid of the number, but it didn't get lost. Here's the thing. It was returned back to the soap bottle, right? So the soap bottle was at 100. You could see that right here, but I ran the function. We could see the level was set to 90. So now when I call on the soap bottle to the screen, it's not 100 anymore. It's 90. It did the math. It did the math and also added a little bit of, interaction here. Exactly, I stored it somewhere. Now, I did not have to overwrite what was in this variable, but in the context of what we're doing, it made sense. If I have a soap bottle and I remove 10% of what was in the soap bottle, regardless of what the username was, obviously the bottle doesn't have 100% in it anymore. So what we need to do is we need to remove that percentage from the bottle. So we actually just modified our variable to indicate that we're at 90 now, right? Now here's the thing, right? So since that is persistent now, right? Because this variable is local to the terminal, right? I could keep calling that and it's going to keep telling me it's at 90%. But if I run the function again, I started at 90 and now I'm at 80. And if I check the variable again, it's 10% even less. And it'll just keep doing that until it's empty. Now it's still going to affect it even if I don't supply a username, right? Now I'm down to 70. Now I'm down to 60, right? It's just going to keep modifying it. And the only thing I'm running is what you got. Right. Now here's the kicker. This is where using the code as intended and your expected input matters, right? Because what's something we know? We can't have negative soap. That doesn't make any sense. You technically could have more than 100% soap in your dispenser, but it would be overflowing over the sides of the bottle. So technically speaking, you could go over 100, but you definitely can't go below it. So if I do it again, I'm now at negative soap, which doesn't make any sense. So we need to actually account for that, right? We don't want negative soap. So we need to fix it. So as it stands right now, indeed, free soap, right? We're going to actually modify our return here, right? We're going to add some logic to this. So I'm going to say if the soap level is less than I think it's LE for less than or equal to 0. Then our return is going to be hard set to 0. We could technically do the same thing to catch if it goes over 100, right? If we don't want that. Greater than or equal to, I believe, is GE. This should actually permit us to catch if it goes less than 0 or if it goes over 100, right? Now, something else we can say is if it's over 100, it just spilled onto the floor. But let's check to make sure these work first. I'm going to redeclare it. And clear the screen. And then, let me set the soap bottle to something first. So let me set the soap bottle back to 100 so it's full. We're going to subtract 10. Right, so that's working as intended. Let's subtract 800. It was currently at 80. Now, as you see here to the screen, I didn't adjust the code that does the math for that write-out statement. So we then came back with a soap dispenser at negative 720 on the screen. But if we check our soap bottle for what was returned, it's equal to 0. So I fixed that part, but I didn't fix the other part of the code. So right there, you can see that it returned the right value here, but not up here. So we need to fix that. And that was just by this right here. I have nothing up here to indicate if it goes above or below that threshold on what that should be equal to, right? So what would be preferable then is for that logic to happen up top. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this up, and I'm actually going to make these adjustments up here and then return the value. So we're gonna make these technically go away, right? So we're still gonna return the soap level, but we're going to only have the one return statement, right? So I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna get rid of the word return on these. And then save it. So what happens here is that it makes the adjustment on what the soap level should actually be, and then it gets written back out to the screen. So I'm going to call it again, clear the screen. Soap bottle is going to be equal back to 100. And then I'm going to call it, and I'm going to empty the bottle. I'm going to ask for negative 800. My dispenser was at 100, and now it's fixed. The user has interacted with the soap dispenser. It's now at level 0, right? That's fixed. Now, if I also do the the print to the screen, it's correct in both places because I fixed the variable before passing it further down in the script. If you have to make an adjustment to a variable, make it at the point where it's captured or the math happens. Because if you let an incorrect variable ride longer into your code, it's a nightmare to troubleshoot. Because if you need to use that variable further up in the code, it's not going to be right? Because here, we initially had it down here by the return statement. That didn't do us any good. Why didn't it do us any good? Because at any point between up here and down here, if I added something in the middle here, like we saw with the soap level right here, it's not correct. If I add any other code in the middle, it's going to be bad. So if you ever have to make an adjustment to a variable before passing it further down in the script, like in this case, it makes sense. We can't have more than 0%, or excuse me, less than 0% soap. That can't happen. And that just works, right? So now I'm going to try to go the other way. I'm going to try to go over 100, right? So I'm going to just take my statement and I'm going to add 800% soap. Well, looky. I have only 100% soap in the dispenser. And just like that, it's full, right? Now, something that I wanted to cover when I was previously bringing up this topic, and a part of the reason why I wanted to include the name of who's refilling it, it's because this robot's got some screws loose, unfortunately. Let me explain. Oh, okay. So I have, if it's true, to write the username to the screen, right? I'm gonna nest. I'm gonna add another if statement in here. And if my username goes in there, it's gonna mess with the soap values, and I'm gonna explain why, right? So I'm gonna say, if the username is like Deckhead41, we're gonna do something different. Okay. So I'm going to add some curly braces. So right now, the way I have this written up is that if the username field exists, then we're going to check to see if it's my username. If it's my username, we're going to write to the host something different. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do another... Nope. I hit the wrong key. Actually, technically, I need to do one more thing here. Because this actually technically has to be multi-conditional to put through the thing I'm trying to do. This will make sense in a second. I will explain myself in a moment. Ha! Hello, GG Chirp Gang. How are you this evening? Thank you for the follow. Well, welcome in to this madness. I do stuff with code and I play games and I talk about computer stuff. This evening we're digging into PowerShell. It's a good time. I know, right? I absolutely love the sounds I chose for new followers or when people subscribe. I had a lot of fun with those. I think the BitRedeem one is still default. I have to change that one, but meh, it's fine. That's fun. Let me see here. All right, so if it's my username and the adjustment is there's going to be a very particular set of criteria that's going to require this. Now, I'm hard coding this for a very specific circumstance. No, technically no, because I would want it. Yeah, as long as the adjustment's positive. As long as it's greater than 0, I think actually is what I want. Yes, okay. Fantastic. Let me think about this for a second here. All right, so if the username is true, which means we have one. If the username is like my username, and the adjustment is greater than 0, then we're actually going to do some additional math to the math. So the soap level is going to be subtracted by 1, and then it's going to say my username has interacted with the soap dispenser. It's at the new level, because each time he uses it to add soap, he uses 1%. Okay, all right, fabulous. All right, let's recompile that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a good time. I'm going to come back over to here, and then I'm going to explain to the stupid that I just wrote on screen for y'all. All right, first things first, I need to redeclare it. Oh, I missed a brace somewhere. I see right there, missing a closing brace. You see that? That is the hide and seek champion of the universe. Let me see what I missed here. I've got the opening of this if statement. Oh yeah, I'm definitely missing one. Because it opens there. It closes down there. This one opens here. Closes there. Oh, I borked it. Hang on a minute. We got... Right, because that's indicating a close right there. This is why it's convenient that you can actually expand and contract the code. So if you miss a curly brace, you should be able to find it. Right, so since that's indicating down here, that means I missed one further up in the code here. Which means I likely didn't close one of these inner ones. Alright, so I open this, so if it's my username, the soap level is that. Right, and I want that to actually be on the end of that code. I should push that back to the end over there. Else. let me see here. Right, if, else. I think that fixed it. Let me. Nope. Now there's an unexpected closing brace. Unexpected token, closing brace, and expression or statement. Alright, here's how I'm going to fix this. I'm going to pull this out for a second. And I'm going to put this back a chunk at a time until I find what I'm missing here. So I already know that this if statement opens here, it closes here, right? So I have if the username is true, then the next thing I want to check for is if the username is my username. Right, so we're going to open and close that one. And inside of there, I want to stick in there these two lines that we're going to adjust the levels. I'm going to write host to the screen because that one was nested inside. That's the ending of that one. And then I want to say off of that one, I have this else statement that lives in here that branches off of that. That one branches off of that. Nope, it doesn't like that. I must not be able to nest them that way. I don't think I'm missing a brace. I think it's just the way I declared it. It doesn't like that, which is fine. I can fix it. Or if I make that an else if that would make that happy. No, it doesn't like that. I guess technically I don't really need... Right, because it's either going to be my username and the adjustment greater than 0. It's going to make the additional adjustment and then end it. Which will shoot back over to there. And then this is what's going to happen if that doesn't happen. That might have actually been what was upsetting it. I didn't see that. I had an extra... Yep, I don't think it was a curly brace. I think it actually might have been... That might have actually been that close paren. Here, let me try to compile that like that and see if it upsets. missing an opening after the else if. Right, so actually if I stick this back to being an else statement. Okay, so that's what it was. So if that was what caused that to get grief, I should be able to wrap this back into what I had. Let me try to undo that. Right, so I'm going to put you on a new line. And then I'm going to say else. And then put this in curly braces. Like that. Save it. I run it again. And it doesn't blow up. Okay. All right. That was my problem. I had an extra one of these guys in here. That's why it didn't compile. Now, here's something that's fun about coding. It told me I had an extra square bracket. I didn't have an extra square bracket. I had an extra open parenthesis, which is why it didn't run. The compiler might tell you that it's one problem when it's something completely unrelated. Yeah, that's kind of evil. Okay, let me actually try the logic now and see if it works. So let's start with setting our soap bottle back to 100. And then I'm going to subtract 10. And my username, Techhead41. Techhead has interacted with the soap dispenser. It's at 90%. Okay, great. I'm gonna be Techhead, and I'm gonna put that 10% back into the bottle. I had 90% soap. I am now at a level of 99. You see what it says here? Techhead41 is interacting with the soap dispenser. It's at level 99 because each time he uses it to add soap, he uses 1%. Let me explain. Yeah, casual gaslighting. That's pretty much what terminals do in a nutshell. My word. Yeah, wait. Yeah. Yeah, no, wait. No, see, here's the kicker, right? If a normal user, anybody other than me, puts soap into the dispenser and it's not my name, right? So it's, if Floof adds 10 more percent in there to go over 100, it's just going to go to 100, right? Or let's say that Floof used 40%, now at 60, right? Now I can also use an additional 40% of soap, and the dispenser goes down to 20%. Well, let's just say I try to glob. I just keep going, right? 200%. Well, it's still 99. Let me explain why it's at 99. I don't know about y'all, but when you work on stuff, right? Right? So that should go to 100%, right? But it doesn't. Why doesn't it do that? That's because my brain doesn't work the same way as everybody else's does. I refill a soap dispenser, and then I've got usually soap on my hands, right? Because I spilled it when I was filling the bottle. So the natural thing in my head to do when I have something on my hands is to apply soap. So to get the soap off my hands, I apply more soap from the bottle and then wash my hands. I can't explain why I do that, but I do that. Which is why I coded that. Because when I refill the bottle, it doesn't stay at 100%. It's stupid, and the code accounts for it. And that is super dumb. It's super dumb. And that's part of the reason why I coded it in. Because it's extra stupid, but it's also how things tend to work out when I refill the soap dispensers. Now, an additional thing I would like to show y'all as we're starting to wind this down is the fact that I'm just calling this within PowerShell. I can make a new script that calls the function, uses it, and keeps the file that runs this super small. Let me show you what that looks like. Oh, wait, we're not done yet. I don't want to do that yet. I actually want to work on the documentation portion first. And then I will explain the call and it being less code. So the synopsis. It does in a few words. This will add or subtract the current soap from the provided bottle. A short description. When the function is called, it requests the level of the soap bottle, the amount changing, and an optional username. Now, in this next section, we're going to say Soap Fun is the name of it. And then the calls in their order. Soap level. Adjustment. Username. And then I'll say right here, type get help dash details detailed soap fun for the examples. And then to call this function, add backslash sub function to your script without the quotes. Outputs. This returns the int of the soap level, and then an example. So an example is actually where we'll take okay. So I've added to the documentation. I'm going to save that. I'm going to call it back in here. And now I'm going to run the get help on soap fun. Now, something you'll see here is that the syntax is not listed over here. I did not fill out syntax. Syntax is provided by PowerShell. I declared that I had 2 integers and a string. So it actually shows you that. It shows you the name of the commandlet switch, what type it's expecting, the type it's expecting, and the type it's expecting across the common parameters. Now, this doesn't specifically say that these are required. You could put that in the description if you'd like. But But also here it says when the function is called, it requests the level of the soap bottle, the amount changing, and the optional username. Note, when the username is set to TechHead41, there's a 1% drop off when adding soap. That's important because if you didn't know that, I coded it, it's in there. You'd be losing your mind if when you put in my username that you lost soap when putting soap in, thinking that no, there's no funnel, didn't just dump it on the floor. TechHead's just a little goofy. Speaking in third person to an audience online. Yeah, I know. Gotta love that. But now if I do the dash detailed, as I also mentioned to myself here, to see the examples. You don't have to include that, but if you're like me and you forget that's a thing, it comes in handy. There is the examples. So it actually shows you running from the current folder, the call of the function, and then the examples. This doesn't show example output, but that's moot, really. Just gives you an idea of what you can drop in here. So now, without even looking inside of the script that we wrote, we can actually see what it does. Its outputs, which was up here, right? It was up here. Ooh, I didn't see that out here. Description, parameters. Okay, I actually don't know what causes the outputs to appear to the screen. I thought that was included in the initial get help. We'll have to do a little research on that later to see what that's about. Indeed, Pyro. I understand. I understand where I stand. I stand with a very, very goofy laptop here. I also love that I took it out to turn it on and it's got Windows updates. And I'm like, it wants to restart. I'm like, no, this is not the time to want to restart. We got stuff to do. I will restart it to let it do its updates when we're done. I'm just kind of happy it didn't decide in the middle of stream to update itself. I know I'm just bringing mojo on myself, but naturally, you know, that's kind of where that goes. But yeah, all right. I mentioned I can call this, right? I'd be like, hey girl, hey, get over here. I need you. That's 100% what we're about to do. I know a forced update, right? Sounds about right. All right, I'm gonna make a new script. Now I'm gonna save it. Maybe. Oh wait, I have to actually, that's right, I forgot. The save doesn't do anything until you type something. And now I can save it. All right, so this is gonna be called, soap bottle modify ES1. Okay. The script will call function to modify our provided bottle. We have here. Okay. So, first thing I'm going to do to include the script. Important facts. This script is in the same folder as the other one. I saved it in the same space. So inside documents is the soap function script. So all I have to do to call it, since it's in the same directory, is to do the period, space, period, backslash, and then the name of it. So it's going to be soap function.ps1. That calls it. That's it. So now the soap fun, short for soap function that we wrote, is now accessible to this script. And I can call it and do whatever I want. So I'm going to do my soap bottle. Start at 100%. And now I can call it. Soap fun. And then it's going to be soap level. I'm going to pass the soap bottle. The soap adjustment is going to be 20%. Username is going to be Loof. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call that multiple times. So I'm going to subtract 20%. And then I'm going to add 10%. Now subtract 40%. And then add 5%. Save that. And now, as I had mentioned before in the land of PowerShell, I'm going to open up another new prompt that has no concept of anything I've opened thus far, right? I have a script that simply calls the soap function and then proceeds to use it 4 times in a row. This soap bottle variable is going to be local to the script when I call it. It's going to set the bottle to 100%, and then it's going to subtract, and add in rapid succession. Now the thing about me writing this in a separate script, this script is going to get called. It's going to be available. All the code's going to run. But this is all you need in your primary script. So if you have a script that's going to do lots of different stuff, right? So it's going to refill the sauces in the kitchen. You know, in this case, it's going to adjust the amount of soap that's in our bottle. You can do multiple things and call on multiple functions from your primary script that then just calls the code. So then you don't have to write it multiple times over. So this function, with all the comments, is 41 lines long. 41 lines wrong. Oh my God, 41 lines long. Those are words. I'm gonna try to use them. But to call it, I just need one line. I can one-liner it, and then it'll call it, it'll do its thing, and it works. So without further ado, I'm gonna do that. So I'm going to change into the documents directory. And then I'm gonna call my script. Soap bottle modify. Click enter. All right, time to check my math and to see if everything worked correctly here. It's at 80%. Oh, something happened here. It got set back. What happened? Oh, I know what happened. You know what I didn't do? I didn't store the result. Gotta do that. I ran it and we never modified the soap bottle. So what that requires is for me to do this. Otherwise, we're not persistent. Aha, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now we have our bottle. The current level of the dispenser from start of the script is at 100%. Floof interacted with it. It's now down to 80. It then runs it again. It goes from 80 to 90, from 90 to 50, and then from 50 to 55 because we added 5 additional to it. Now the nice thing about that is that that's all good and well. But remember, I did say about scope in the scripts, right? So the variables that we passed, right? So the soap bottle, the adjustment, and the name of the user is available to this script, right? And then it goes from this script, it's passed over to this one, it's run, and then the only thing that comes back is that soap level. That soap level is then returned and stored in the variable. And then we just used it again to run it the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time. Here's the thing though. I called this script, right? Which means that now that I'm back to a blinking cursor, if I try to pull up that soap bottle, it doesn't exist. Because the bottle only existed in the script when we called it. And since this script that we ran doesn't have any kind of return, we don't got nothing back. Now, if I wanted to keep that number, hi Golden, good evening to you / morning. I would need to actually run this in the terminal if I wanted to keep this code, right? So if I actually take this, copy it, and clear the screen, and then I just run it, and then ask for the soap bottle level, let me move my ears out of the way there, I now have the variable in my scope, which means I can pull on that magic number of where we left off. Now, since the idea that you can have multiple scripts chained together and the scope of variables can get lost, right? It might make sense to write the numbers from individual scripts to file, right? So then that way, regardless of script scope, you can still access the variable, or excuse me, what the variable contained. You might find that people will run this kind of stuff and store those variables results in CSVs or comma separated values, files like that, or they might just write them simply to a text file. When push comes to shove, there's a lot of different ways you can store data and the way you can pull data back. But the kicker isn't necessarily on where you store it. It's just the fact that if you need it and you're planning on going to need it later, you're going to need to put it in a position that will allow you to pull it back out again. And that ends up being fairly important. I know I ranted for a good majority of time here, but I'm curious, does anybody have any questions, or does any of this not necessarily make sense? I could try my best to clarify the madness a little bit here of what I've got on screen. Now, the reason that I used the idea of a soap bottle to express through the idea of a function is that without tying some kind of activity to what these different things are, it's very hard to visualize it, right? Because if I just said, you know, variable x is going to be equal to this, variable y equals that doesn't mean anything to anyone, right? The fact that I gave the variables meaningful names and then we built this concept, right? Because even in the description, right, what is this? At its most basic level, this is a very incredibly basic calculator that can either add or subtract a number from an existing number, given the condition it's not my name, because if it's my name, then we also subtract one if it's an addition, right? That's a weird oddity that I built into this, that given no context of the names of the variables, it's just a fairly dumb calculator. There's nothing super fancy about it. But the fact that we added meaning to it is what really makes the code actually do something useful for us. In the case of PowerShell, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can install software, you can move folders, you can rename files, you could do all sorts of crazy stuff to the computer with it. But to give an absolute basic concept of what happens in the terminal, in the different places of scope, I thought this would be at least somewhat useful. And I find it kind of fun to talk about, because with the concept of what we're up to here, I find it somewhat load bearing. I don't know, I think it's neat. I wouldn't mind digging into a bit of a bigger project too. I just thought this would be kind of a neat jumping point. Because it gives a little bit of build, I guess is really the only thing I could think of right now. Because I've got a bit of floof brain at the moment. I don't know. Well, push comes to shove, I think it's not too shabby. I don't know, my mind kind of goes back to that drive-through though. As I mentioned here, that we prevented our user from being able to go up and down iPod app and the golden. I find it interesting. It's kind of fun. Yeah. Let me see here. See if I can type. I can type. Haha. I would very much like to thank you all for coming to spend time with me this evening. I'm hoping this felt mildly educational. And you know, it's a good thing. Oh yeah, raid messages are fun. At some point, I'm gonna do the emote thing, but until that happens, there's our there's our raid message. Feel free to add emotes if you'd like, if you've got any. But yeah, we're gonna do more goofy things next time. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Have an excellent evening or morning, all. Bye bye now.